We'll call this meeting of council to order on Tuesday, October the 15th. Please be seated. Thank you, Madam CAO. That was a new version.
It's rousing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Could use maybe a little
Drum.
a little quicker, but that was good. That was a nice change.
Okay, thank you. We are guests on the shared traditional land of the Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat, and Anishinaabe people, where they built their homes and raised their families. We appreciate these lands for the food, air, water, plants, trees, and medicines they give us. We value the land by swimming and boating, working, camping, and exploring the forests. We promise to take care of this land by not littering or wasting water, composting, recycling, planting trees and flowers, not idling our cars, and saving energy.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And that takes us to item 4.1, which is the adoption of the agenda. It's moved by Councillor Crapper, seconded by Councillor Carter, that the agenda for the meeting of council on October the 15th, 2024 be adopted as presented. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Any declarations of conflict or pecuniary interest tonight? Seeing none, item number 6, adoption of minutes of the previous council meetings. It's moved by Councillor Card, seconded by Councillor Crapper, that the minutes of the September 10, 24 council meeting and October 1st, 24 council meeting be received and adopted. Any discussion on the minutes? Any errors or omissions? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Takes us to number 7, which are the motions and resolutions. 7.1 is the Public Works Facilities Review. That's moved by Councillor Crapper, seconded by Councillor Card. The council directs staff to prioritize AODA and health and safety issues outlined in the Facilities Review Report and incorporate recommendations into the 10-year capital plan and the 2025 operating and capital budgets as appropriate. Any other discussion on this? So for people watching, I'd just like to remind the public that we are sitting as council tonight. And so the items on the agenda are brought forward from our committee of the whole meeting, which was 2 weeks ago. And that is generally where you get most of the debate, most of the questions of staff. We do use a 2 meeting per item agenda as a general rule, which gives us a couple of weeks in between should there be input from the public. So it's not that we didn't have a long discussion about this, we did. And if you're interested, you could go back and watch the YouTube video of the committee of the whole meeting from October the 1st. Okay, I'll call the question then. All in favor? Carried. Under 8.1 is administration. And this is just for your information, I guess. It's moved by Councillor Card, seconded by Councillor Crapper. That council received the report entitled Administration Building Permit Update for Q3 for information purposes. All in favor? 8.2 is administration, the community grants policy. Moved by Councillor Crapper, seconded by Councillor Card, that council approve the community grants policy as presented today at the October 15th, 2024 council meeting. So you remember, staff brought forward at our committee of the whole, there was lots of really good input. And you have actually gotten not a red line, but a highlighted version of the amendments made. So any further discussion on where we were at? Councillor Cardy and then Councillor Crapper.
I just think that having a policy in place is gonna be really helpful to see the bottom line, the numbers of maybe money's not being exchanged, but seeing the value of, places within the village that are being used, or in-kind, services that are being, used and utilized by our, villagers. So I think it's just really good governance to have this in place, and we'll be able to say, like, we maybe don't have the budget for some things that people want, but we can offer it through grants and stuff like that.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Cardy. Councillor Crapper.
Yeah, I appreciate the two that we put in the two changes, which are the exceptions and the dual intake, because that'll add some flexibility. I remain worried that it is possible that some of the opportunities we might have and might have had in the past for programs and services to be available in the village, I worry that some of them could be lost if indeed either we run out of the budget runs out, or one of the timelines isn't met. So I'll assume the exceptions will remedy the second one. A thought that I would like us to consider, that I've seen in lots of places, is that rather than the same fee being charged, say for the community hall, for a stag and doe, as we would charge for a nonprofit organization offering a program of some kind for our residents, that we could have a different rate for the nonprofits. And to say, the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. Why would we charge, if our budget was done and we had a group wanting to offer a parenting program, and they could afford $10 an hour, but they couldn't afford $35, which is above market rate from what I see in our other facilities that could be accessed by a public community service. Whatever the rate would need to be to cover our costs. Because one of the things I sort of picture is that we have a room sitting empty rather than somebody who could afford a rate to use it paying it. And I don't think anyone would argue with covering the costs needed to run the lights. But $35 an hour is a lot for a lot of organizations, and it would have precluded many of the programs that I was involved in the past. And if we want them in the village, we need to think about how do we incentivize people to be here. And I just don't think there are that many in the first place. But if there was even one that couldn't operate because of that, it'd be a sad result. And it just makes me wonder why we would charge the same rate for Marty's 50th birthday party where we are 50. Who am I kidding?
That was low hanging.
That was a good party.
We're all biting our tongues.
It was a great party.
Do you remember it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But you know what I mean? So you could have a birthday party, rent the hall for $35 an hour, or you could have the Lions Club, or so whatever group needs it for running a parenting program. A sliding scale, a different scale it is in place in other places. It made sense when I saw it. And why would you charge the same for both? We do want to make a profit, and as we said last time, it's this challenge of finding the balance between and not make a profit. We don't want to lose too much money. We said we get our variances tonight, and we can see what the arena costs versus what the arena brings in is relevant to this conversation. But this is a small ticket item when we're talking about a small group of community agencies who hopefully will feel welcome to come into town and offer these things. At the one facility we own that we refer to as a community hall. At one point, this building had a senior center in it, and there was no charge for that. And it was it wasn't accessible, but it was available. Well, when it was down here, it was accessible. So it's happened in the past, it could happen in the future, and I'd hate to see our desire for making sure we're we have a policy in place, as Councillor Cardy says, preclude it being something that allows for, maximizes flexibility when we need it.
Councillor Carr.
In some ways, I agree with Councillor Crapper, but I guess his statement about making a profit or close to break even. If you're charging $35 an hour, without going back and checking the rate. So for a 2-hour meeting, village would charge $70, and it's not just the building. If somebody goes in to open the building, somebody has to clean up when it's all done, shut down. So I think, to my way of thinking, we might better, if we do anything, expand on the exceptions rule rather than try to set different rates for everybody, because then if we do it for this person, what's the next group going to come along, and what category do they want to be in? I think the exceptions rule could be expanded to accommodate just about anything that could happen.
Yeah, just quick follow-up on that.
Go ahead.
It's just
It's
that
not-
it's already in place, because we're saying that the not-for-profits are the groups that we would, and the only groups that we would be giving the waiver for. And if we budgeted at a lower rate, you know, as Councillor Carty said, it's not lost money. It might be lost opportunity for space, because if there aren't groups using it, it will be sitting empty anyhow. But those groups, I can tell you from direct experience, $70 an hour is a prohibitive fee for offering something like a parenting program in the village of Westport. Or $70 for 2 hours, $35 an hour.
Joe, or Councillor Graham, sorry.
So I'd be a little wary of setting 2 rates and then having to try and manage that. I'd be very concerned about how we actually apply that and the actual, I guess, overhead admin processes behind it. I'm more inclined to suggest that we try the policy as it's structured and see what the uptake is, and then determine at the end of 1 year whether or not there is a need to make adjustments. The other thing on rates is that looking at budget, which we're going to look at later, I'm starting to question whether or not our rates are where they should be in terms of how we actually charge out for our facilities, and primarily the harbor and the arena itself. Those are our 2 biggest assets, and I don't think we're bringing enough revenue in from those. So I'll keep those comments for later. But right now, I think that maybe it might make more sense to try this policy as it is, and then see what the uptake is and revisit later on.
Okay, anybody else on the way in? Councillor Carr?
Yeah, and follow up on Councillor Argona's statement there. I think that's probably the right way to go, in that staff have some discretion in how they handle different applications, and we have really nothing to base, you know, any judgments on right now. There's certainly no waiting line up for any of our facilities, so let's build some data and a database and see how we make out after whatever time council thinks is appropriate.
Okay.
And I guess
Final word.
yeah, we'll know by the number of exceptions so if people are able to apply for exceptions, then that will establish, and if some of those aren't approved, that will establish the demand that isn't met. It's a supply demand equation. I had one question asked of me.
Supply and demand for village residents.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was one of the criteria. That's got to be mainly for people in the village.
Yeah.
So a lot of people may get bounced out anyway because they're draws.
I agree. And services that meet village residents' needs, which is the only reason they become to the village to offer them.
Right.
Those are the services I'm interested in, and parenting groups are great examples. One other
So I
question.
would be, I think I like what's going on. I gotta come back to the question. I don't want to lose this point. You know, we spent a lot of time with service agencies here in our first year.
Yeah,
And, you know, if there was a tie-in between one of those groups and the request you're making, you know, then we'd say, well, this is what we said we were about.
exactly.
So let's look at it. So I don't think we've got to throw the baby out with the
No,
bath.
through the exceptions process, right? Yeah, which is what makes
Gives us
me
data.
more comfortable that, you know, this has the potential to work. $35 an hour, they wouldn't be able to. A quick question somebody asked, it was a Bloom's question, actually. Practical question about the degree of bureaucracy that might get in the way. So if, for example, I guess every year they get 5 pylons for the tree delivery thing. would they need to go through this process to get something that small? That's what people aren't clear on, at what points, it's a small ask and maybe it's something they just come to the village and I don't know, but
It's
people,
just not
Yeah.
space, so that's how I felt. We'll go over to the CAO. It's to borrow a piece of equipment, but not space. Kim,
Yeah, sorry, I'm just going over the policy here. Certainly we do that for other groups as well, do tangle garden, things like that for the barriers. I don't think it speaks to it in here. I think the intent is to capture it though, and a dollar figure associated with that. And so I don't know if there's any dollar figure associated with the pylons in particular, but the staff time in putting these out would certainly be the intent of this policy. So,
okay.
which to follow up on the reason for the question and concern was just, it seems when you look at the process of going through to get the 5 pylons, I'm just sharing perception. The perception is, boy, that's a lot of hoops to jump to get 5 pylons for a service that, as you've written recently, is a real big benefit to our community.
Yeah, well, I'll have to mull on that one.
Because if it
Because
isn't,
they're gonna end up buying their own 5 pylons. That's what they'll end up doing. Probably. I'm not suggesting it, just they'll probably just say,
Right.
okay, that's your process. We're just gonna buy the 5 pylons to line up on.
if it isn't in the policy, though, maybe there's still room for us to ask ourselves. Can we leave some latitude for some things that are more commonsensical than not?
I think I hear that they like to proceed with the policy and deal with the exceptions once they get some data. That's, that means, to me, that is the only way we're really gonna know if it's, sound or not.
Some of those people can let us know if they find it
For
a,
sure, and I'm sure they will.
yeah,
Yeah, there's another group that actually sent me an email this week, and much of what you just
Mm.
said out loud was what was in that email.
right.
So call the question. Any other debate on this, or we'll try, so I think what we're saying is we're prepared to approve it. We'd like to review it next December after a year of data, or in the meantime, if it looks like it's not working. Fair enough, CAO, that's where we're gonna go, okay, for council, that works?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor.
Do these exceptions come to us or is it a staff decision? Staff, okay, perfect.
I'm sorry, through Madam
The
Mayor,
report.
the way that it is worded in the policy is that any exceptions
That's what,
come through the municipal clerk, but as a delegation to council.
Mhm.
Because that was the idea of implementing the criteria, so that
that's
staff.
what I wanted to
That's
clarify.
good, yeah.
Okay. So if the 5 pylons could be possibly an exception, maybe.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, we hear from them.
Perfect, thank you.
You like it?
I like it.
And it wouldn't, sorry to interrupt, just as clarifying this stuff, it wouldn't need therefore to wait to one of the 2 intake dates. It could happen. Because the concern is, well, will we have our act together to, whatever, do we, for one of those
5
dates?
pylons here.
I know, but it's just an example.
Yeah.
Other examples will come up for sure.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Okay, so now we've agreed we're gonna try it for a year. We understand when exceptions come forward, it will go through, it comes in through the clerk to us as either a delegation or a staff report or whatever it is that the asker requester wants. And after a year, we'll get an idea if we hit the mark or if we've got to amend.
Mhm.
Good for everybody?
Yeah.
All right, I'll call the question. And all in favor? Carried. Good discussion. Okay. All right, 8.3, which is administration Leeds County OPP Detachment Board Community Member Appointment. So I'm gonna get. Moved by Councillor Card, seconded by Councillor Crapper. The council received the report entitled Administration Leeds County OPP Detachment Board Community Member Appointment. And the council support the appointment of Ms. Catherine Graham and Mr. Todd Robertson as a community representative to sit on the Leeds County OPP Detachment Board. Councillor Card.
We had numerous, excellent applications. These 2 individuals, stood out, as well-rounded, well-educated, very intelligent, and, very community-minded people who expressed a sincere appreciation for the for what the police services board is all about, and certainly sincere about willingness to help and do what they could. And both well equipped to, lend their expertise in specific areas that the police services board would require. So, I don't think we could have made better choices.
Good. Councillor Aragona.
I was very impressed with the credentials and the summaries of the two individuals. My one question was, how long is the appointment for?
It would be the term of the current councils.
Okay. Because I guess the board is just established at the end of our term,
At the end of our term.
right? Okay. Anybody else, anything? Okay, I guess they've got to do this in every detachment.
For the most part,
Most
yeah.
part. Okay, well then we'll get it done tonight and, yeah, for sure. Anybody, anything else? Okay, and they love police.
They do.
Good, all right.
Yeah, that's.
Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Prices, please, not everybody does.
Yeah.
All right, 8.4 is the OPP annual billing statement. Well, the police may not love this part though. Moved by Councillor Crapper, seconded by Councillor Card. The council received the report entitled Administration OPP Annual Billing Statement Increase for Information Purposes. So you'll note from the clerk's wording that it's received for information purposes. It doesn't mean we can't have a rousing debate on it, but at the end of the day, this is the way the OPP operates. You get a base rate and then calls for service. Councillor Cardin.
I just found in this report, it was very interesting that our numbers from 2020 to current, they're pretty similar, even though our population has increased, calls and, all the reports broken down, but all the numbers are very similar in most of the cases anyways.
Yeah, good point. I wonder if we get less medical calls because of the ambulance being here Monday to Friday, 9 to 9. I don't know who I'd even ask on that. Maybe the OPP. I mean, they could just run that line
Is it
In
under
the-
operational?
in the DPR, in their DPR, in their records management system. I'm just throwing it out there.
Just so you,
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, we have to invite the detachment commander to come and do an annual report,
Right.
so I'll ask him that
Okay,
question.
oh, brilliant. Okay, thank you. Councillor Crawford, then Councillor Craig.
So 27% budget increase. I mean, great stuff for village residents to see because so much of the impacts on taxation in our village are beyond our control. But a question for you, is that approximately the same amount percentage that other communities are facing as a result of?
They're talking the percentage increase. I'm not sure about that, Councillor Crawford, but they're talking about the 3.5%, 4%
Right.
overall increase in their taxes. I'm not.
No, but as far as the budget.
I'm not sure.
yeah, Okay.
Yeah, I'm, what the scuttle was, what
Yeah.
it cost in the
Uh-huh.
tax rate.
I'd be interested in knowing if larger communities got the same hit in terms of their budget or what they're having to pay in addition to what they used to for these services.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really encourage people to look at this report because it tells a story about our community. And it also tells a story about how it's like an insurance claim almost. When you use this service, you pay for this service. And one of the lines that I found fairly striking were the number of calls that weren't warranted. Those cost us money. And so maybe there is room for some public education on this front. But it's tricky business because you want people to use the police for what they need to use the police for. But I don't think most people realize that we pay for it as a user fee, in essence, for the volumes that we use them for.
Sure enough. Councillor.
Yeah, so I think, taxation doesn't play such a large role in it as one would imagine. It's based on housing units. So there's a fixed cost per housing unit rather than a cost or a percentage of your, it's a percentage of our budget, but as far as OPP goes, it's I forget what the rate was per unit. It's what, $168 per unit or something like that. So it's not, it affects our budget and our taxation, but it's not based on that. And as you said, the pay for use part, which is like 49.3% or something like that. And again, if you look at the call volume for the village of Westport, there isn't, you might segregate 2 or 3 calls out of that whole list, so, public education is not a bad thing, but, I wouldn't look for it to impact the numbers significantly.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Either CAO or treasurer, does the OPP provide the answer to Councillor Crafter's question online at all, which is what percentage increase does each of the other municipalities get for OPP policing?
Thank you through you, Madam Mayor. I'll acquiesce to the treasurer, but I do know the treasurer's group has internally discussed it.
As what?
Have internally discussed it between them, amongst the treasurers.
The shop and the awe, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
there's upwards of 40%.
Yeah, through
Okay,
you,
yeah.
Madam Mayor, to Councilor Cropper. In this area, we are a little bit higher than local municipalities, but province-wide, there are some municipalities that are almost 40% increases. And the larger municipalities are being hit equally as hard, and because it is based on that per capita. One thing to note is that there is $45,000 that is deferred back to the 2023 budget, so not all of that 27% is going to hit our 2025 operating, because we'll be able to capture that with any savings that we can find in the budget this year. So that'll be nice, but the overall impact is 27, but there are a lot of municipalities that are at 39%.
Okay, okay, there you go. Okay, so we're gonna swagger a little bit now. It's like, but in a bad way, so it is for others.
It's not that
bad. Exactly. Could have been worse. How Canadian we are. Anything else about that then? We got the answer to Councillor Crafter's question. All right, I'm gonna call the question. All in favor? Carried. 8.5, Treasury 2024 budget variance reports. So we'll get the motion on the table, and if you've got lots of questions. It's moved by Councillor Card, seconded by Councillor Crafter, that council receive the 2024 budget variance report for information purposes. Now, I just preamble. So this is a document near and dear to us. We normally start getting it beginning of Q3. There's enough activity in the budget to start generating the reports. Our staff desire with all their heart to provide us with the similar reports as in the past, but there were some workload challenges that, so it looks a little different this time because the percentages are something that are near and dear. So staff have said, you know, moving forward, they will provide what you expect to see, but I was really banging on the door that we needed to see a variance report because we're in Q4. So just by way of explanation, they're going to be the first to say not what they're going to send you every month, but they had to get something out the door, so to speak. Did you want to speak to that at all, or?
No, just to further some of the inquiries today on what specifically is over budget, you'll see it's outlined in the report. And just to say that this is only until August 31st. And so some of the spending that's going to be done in Q4 is obviously not reflected in this report yet. We do plan to send another one in November of where specifically we're at.
Comments, questions, concerns? Councillor Carter.
Yeah, I just say after going over it pretty much line by line, it's, unless, the last column is, over the budget number, I think there's, staff would inform us if there's any need for immediate concern. We're not judging this month to month, we're judging it against, the quarters, so, there's still lots of things to happen and lots of expenses and some revenue still that we will incur over the next little while. That will bring us down the road to hopefully a balanced budget at the end of the year. But I'm sure that staff would let us know if there's anything that was out of whack to the point where council should be concerned about it. And if that's the case, this is the time to tell us.
All right. Perfect, so that's good. Councillor Aragona, then Councillor Crafter.
Yeah, to the point that Councillor Card made, as I said earlier, I was looking at it line by line, and I was starting to get a little concerned about the revenue section, specifically around the recreation, which is not tracking to where we expected it to be. So I'm sure some of that is probably because of the harbor docking fees and things that didn't happen over the summer. But I'm starting to wonder if we are charging enough for things like the arena and the park and other things. So I'm very concerned about looking at those numbers and seeing that in some cases, we're not even half, 50% where we should be.
End of August, just jog your memory. So what are you, so your observations are fair. Trying to think when the last time was it perhaps prior to you coming on board 2 years ago? Well, last time we did an analysis of what other municipalities are offering or charging. And that's the way to get the data that you need, right?
It's going, yes.
Because we think it looks like we're low, but if we don't have the data to compare it. So it's gonna go back to the CAO is.
Sure, yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, we did do a high level analysis and that was just of 2 to 3 neighboring recreation facilities like ours. But I don't see why certain staff can undertake another analysis before the general rates and fees bylaw discussion that's scheduled for Q4.
May I?
Yeah, that would be, sorry, I just didn't know Kim was done. Go ahead and then we'll come to you.
Yeah, I think that would be an excellent idea, is to re-examine the rates and see if we're at the right level. One of the other things that came to mind was, how are we actually promoting, offering these facilities that we have that are available for rent? I'd be interested to see how other municipalities are doing that and how successful they are at that. There might be some things that we could bring into the recreation program that would allow us to sort of promote these a little better and maybe get a little bit more uptake on the arena, the harbor itself for shows or for whatever, or even the ballpark itself. So that's one of the things that came to mind. And I think I would like to see how other municipalities are actually doing that.
So again, you need some data to help you before we move forward. Then we have to remember our recreation department is 2 years old. Maybe, I think it was a 1 year, are we gonna like this? And then 2 years. So probably the best idea to kick off the discussion is a report from the rec manager on how he's been promoting, in what methods. I don't see it as something that's gonna take him a long time, but it would be nice for us to know maybe at the committee of the whole in December.
I can, sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, I can tell you right now that any kind of marketing or promotional campaign that we've been looking for, because we talked about a policy, nobody really has any rhyme or reason for what they do. But what he's investigating now is the notion of naming certain rooms in the arena. So naming dressing rooms, things like that. And we're trying to drill down on that data. But we've not been able to find any kind of run-of-the-mill marketing policy when it comes to the arena. I can tell you, we do go by the communications policy. So he uses Facebook, he uses the website, he uses the normal channels.
But it would be nice to have a report saying what he's done and what recommendations he's got, because he's coming into budget time as well.
Yeah.
And then, I guess the next step is look to see what others are doing, but remembering they've been operating for years. And we have, part-time rec manager, full-time rec manager, but with split between 2 seasons. So that satisfy you to get that started, to get some information on how, because we say just, but we also know that there's a group of people, in sort of, just for instance, the Merkley family or the Card family, who are often helping on social media and other things that I would like to have captured as well. Is that okay? Go ahead, Paul.
Can I add one other thing? Yeah, I think that is ideal to have that kind of information. I'd also want to sort of venture outside that box a bit and look at what is the most successful municipality in our province that is renting out facilities, and how have they done that? It might be worthwhile to sort of start looking at that. Where is this being done well outside of our region?
So coming back to staff, that's certainly not a political discussion to have with other politicians, because it's a competition, right? If I say, hey, Mayor Hugenboom,
Yeah.
you know, and not that he's going to add and embellish, but so that's a staff to staff discussion. And I don't know how we would determine who the best is, but why don't we start with the either the treasurer's group or the CAO group, we'll leave it to staff, and give us some feedback on how we can get that sort of report.
Sure.
And it doesn't just have to be in Leeds and Grenville, but let's start with the professionals first of all and see what they can offer for, where do you get that information? Because it's not sitting somewhere. Someone's gonna have to actually go and ask for it. So, is that okay then?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Carney, then Councillor Carter.
Speaking about, what Councillor Aragon is talking about, I do know that other hockey organizations do come to Westport because it might be a little bit cheaper, but it's also available, right? So we might want to look at cost, but I know, for instance, a whole organization came one day from 10 to 4, used the ice all day long. So it might be, I don't know dollars of like the difference in, let's say, Kingston or Smiths Falls, to Westport, but to have it used, or do we want it being used all the time, or do we want to charge more, right? So I think that's the catch 22 that we maybe need to also look at for money, if we're talking dollars and cents, right? What's gonna make more sense for our community?
Good point. Councillor Carter.
And so to follow up on Councillor Cardy's point, that is one of the attractions of the Westport facility. And I think it's been intentional all along to maybe have more rented hours, because your price is slightly lower. The other thing that is apparent to just about everybody that goes in the arena, and I get a lot of feedback on, I'm sure councillors do too, is the appearance of the facility. It's now kind of the premier facility in the area. It's undergoing constant change. The rec manager is on top of just about everything. The way he presents the facility, clean, bright, white, always, the housekeeping is excellent. And all those things count for a lot
Yeah.
when people come to rent the facility. When you step in the front door, you look up at the television, you know where your dressing room is, you know who to talk to. It's gone from like a kind of it's working thing to it's working very well. So I think based on the village's purchase of a team and the success of that team, that's a key part of making the arena work and having it eventually get to I guess our best expectation would be a break-even position for us. So I think we're well on our way toward that by just some of the intrinsic things that are happening there, based on a professional recreation manager who knows what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. So being involved in that from a photo standpoint, I think that everybody, the whole community is working toward improving that facility. It's not just photo, it's not just the rec manager, it's not just council, but everybody in the community has a very large part in making that arena a success. So I can't see it failing if we keep on the same track.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a path that we're on. So I come back to Councillor Aragona, and my caution that we've only been at it for 2 years. I can remember sitting around photo tables and people expecting the rink manager. He's making ice, he's cleaning ice, he's shoveling ice, to somehow reach out to other groups to bring more people in. And, you know, it sounded good sitting around a table. Yes, we should get so-and-so to do it. But in reality, that's not his job. His job is he's one of the best ice makers in the province. So it's taken Chris some time. I mean, I suspect when we get to the money side, and there's gonna have to be a discussion at some point about who uses the rink, user fees versus a stipend, grant, donation, not quite sure what we call the generous gift that the Township of Rio Lakes gives us. But at some point, you know, I suspect that somebody's gonna come to this group and say, you need to look at that in a lot more detail. So we'll kind of throw that seed out and see if it takes any root. Councillor Craft.
These are really a few questions for my learning curve to mainly wastewater. I suppose through you to Peter Evans, I suppose, the enabling wastewater fund grant, can you remind me what that one is?
Go ahead, Peter.
So through your worship, the Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund, that's a grant that's been announced by the province mostly for growth-related projects. So the village, what did apply for a project, was not successful in the first round, but we're currently applying to the second intake rate.
So the number that's in the variance is just a ballpark what we asked for.
So through your worship, the number that is in the budget is based on the amount that would have been spent if we were successful.
Okay,
So since we weren't successful, we weren't spending anything beyond some of the engineering costs, which are still eligible, should we be successful in the future in getting that project up and running.
I've been asked a few times, and it comes up in here, so I might get asked again, the difference between, so it says new water storage, and then it also is water tower upgrade. So the water tower upgrade is the grant that we've spent some money on writing the grant in the hope of a big grant. How does that differ from new water storage?
So through your worship, the water tower upgrades are in order to keep the existing tower in service. Which is different from the work to add additional storage in the system.
And we have a grant that's been submitted for the latter?
The latter was submitted and not successful, but they opened up a second intake immediately, and we are working on the application right now.
Okay, thank you. Oh, and I guess through you, Mayor Jones, to Kim, development fees as a source of revenue, what's our likely timeline for that, and how might that impact our bottom?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're actually expecting Watson and Associates to come to the November 5th meeting with an update on the process, as well as an outline on what that looks like for budget, and depending on when we implement it. So that'll be November 5th, that's what we're expecting.
Excellent,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Crawford. Anybody else? Okay, these things come. It goes without saying, but let's say it anyway, team, that we know the pressure that our treasury has been under this year. And we are very appreciative of the hanging in there and working to get the numbers right for us. Sooner than later, we'll have the audit in front of us, which is something that we're looking forward to. These things are not delayed by our existing staff. They are doing everything that they can to enable the auditors and enable others to bring us our final numbers. They know just as well as you do that the 2025 budget is looming on us, and that we need to clean up from 23, 24, so that we can look towards 25. But I just want to make sure the public watching understands we appreciate the work that the Treasury and the CAO, Mr. Evans, Mr. Chismore are doing to pull together, but certainly with our treasurer, we know it. There is light at the end of the tunnel, but sometimes it felt like the headlights weren't on, so we're good. All right, so I think I called that question, yes? Not yet. All right, so I'll just double read the motion because we've had quite a chat. Moved by Councillor Card, seconded by Councillor Cropper. The council received the 2024 budget variance report for information purposes. Call that question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, bylaws. First bylaws, volunteer recognition policy. And the motion is that it's moved by Councillor Cropper, seconded by Councillor Card, that bylaw 2024-24, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2024-08, a bylaw to establish a volunteer recognition policy, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 15th day of October 2024. Any discussion on that? All right, call the question. All in favor? Carried. Terrific. Thanks, staff. That's good to get that done. Community grants policy, which we've just previously debated again. It is 2024-31, moved by Councillor Card, seconded by Councillor Cropper, that bylaw 2024-31 being a bylaw to establish a policy for community grants for the corporation of the village of Westport, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 15th day of October 2024. Anything else? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Great. And 9.3, this is already my happy dance again. Records management policies, moved by Councillor Cardy, seconded by Councillor Aragona, that bylaw 2024-32 being a bylaw to establish a records management policy, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 15th day of October 2024. Any comments? Okay, I'll call that question as well. All in favor? Great. Any notices of motion? All right, any announcements? One of the announcements that I have is for councillors to know that midterm we assess what committees we're chairing or we're part of. And then we have a discussion come January if you'd like to shuffle the deck at all. So just kind of giving you the heads up, this is your, for two of you, this is your first midterm. So that if you want to slide it some way or another, or if you think we should have another committee. I was thinking today, I'm just gonna throw it out there, please, I can feel Councillor Card's eyes boring into me already.
So we should.
That we have no economic development committee. And for all the reasons, all the naysayers, all the people who said if town hall's involved, they're gonna run it. I just wanna float it out there that I sometimes feel that we are not part of the solution or the problem, so maybe we can discuss that at some future, I'm just throwing seeds again. Any other announcements? Mr. Cardy.
Some members of council and the mayor will be handing out Halloween treats at town hall this year for Halloween.
Exactly,
Yes.
please come,
Yes, come visit us.
yes. Councillor Crawford.
Not to compete, but the library will be doing its green screen again, which attracted thousands of people last year. And, well, a lot of people, and gave out all kinds of great candy, like chocolate bars and stuff, so, yeah, make your way by there too.
Good,
Do the loop.
good, do the loop, exactly. And that's not that far away. Okay, anybody else? No other announcements? Okay, so that, any questions from the public? Anything? Okay. Any questions from the media? All right, then we are going to proceed into closed session. I'll read the motion and then we'll take a stretch. This moved by Councillor Aragonis, seconded by Councillor Cardy, that we proceed into closed session so that council can, as permitted under the Municipal Act, to consider personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal employees, and education and training for members of council. All in favor? Carried. Well, thank you so much for coming. I hope it Okay. Thank you, everybody. We're back in open session again. And it's moved by Councillor Aragona, seconded by Councillor Cardy. The council met in closed session to discuss matters pertaining to personal matters about an identifiable individual, including a municipal employees, and education and training for members of council. The council will now consider a resolution in open session. I'll call that question. Carried. The next is moved by Councillor Cardy, seconded by Councillor Aragona. The council directs staff to proceed with option one as outlined in the confidential briefing note, administration, library board request for services update presented at the October 15th, 2024 closed session. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. The confirmatory bylaw moved by Councillor Aragona, seconded by Councillor Cardy, that bylaw 2024-33 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings at its meetings held on October 1st, 2024 and October 15th, 2024 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 15th day of October 2024. All in favor? Carried. Sorry. Moved by Councillor Cardy, seconded by Councillor Aragona, that this meeting of the council of the Village of Westport be adjourned at 6:31 p.m. All in favor? Carried. But just a reminder to people who might not be attending next Thursday at the Cove, you'd be the only one who